Reading RSpec, Our Journey of Meta-Programming is my title for this talk. So this talk is about RSpec, partly because in the EuRuKo website, there was data that everybody wants to know about RSpec. So I wanted to talk about it, but I didn't know that. So RSpec is awesome. I use it every day, of course, but I didn't know that. Right yesterday, we already had a keynote from the original author of RSpec, as you know. So this is kind of bizarre experience of talking about some code base in front of the original author. This is obviously my first time. And this talk is also about DSL, domain-specific language. Domain-specific language is a topic, famous, popular topic. So we also have this talk tomorrow from Tom about DSL. So we can learn a lot about DSL, I guess. So domain-specific language is readable, especially readable like English. So in RSpec, we have describe, it, like let, and expect. However, what do they actually do? Because although it looks like English, it's not. I mean, you can read, but you know, it's Ruby code. It's executable, and it's executed somehow. What do they actually do? Well, to know that, we need to do code reading, reading code. So this talk is all about code reading. So there are many takeaways in this talk. So number one is reading code is fun. It's one of my hobbies. So in fact, it's my hobby that I organized a meetup just for reading code. And in Japanese, I'm afraid. And we've already read some famous gems, such as FactoryBot, WebRick. So in this WebRick meetup, we invited the original author of WebRick, Takahashi-san. It's famous for Takahashi method. And he explained why it is. So it was really interesting. And a parallel jam, Kuber jam, rack jam, and so on. Usually it takes 2 hours. But this time, for me, I only have 40 minutes. So it's a rush. So please be careful. By the way, who's me? I took this photo 2 days ago, right, in the Vilnius. So which is me? One is cat, and one is me. So this is my, like, you know, I mimicked. I tried to be cat as much as possible. So let me introduce myself. My name is Masafumi. Call me Masa, shorter version. I'm working as a freelance web developer in Japan. I'm from Japan, by the way. And my activities is like something like organizing some meetups, communities, including Ruby Jams, code reading stuff, and Kaigi on Rails. So this is a domestic conference, but it's a tech conference starting 3 years ago. And this is the 4th time this year. It's the first physical in-person conference, and I'm the chief organizer of it. I started it as a founder. I also develop a Alba, which is a Ruby gem, and it's a JSON serializer, like active model serializer, but it's much faster. It's much more like shorter code. It works for JRuby and Truffle Ruby as well, and I still maintain it. And this is the extra version. So I read source code with Vim. I've been using it for like 10 years. And I also building a new documentation tool, as I mentioned in the pitch for unconference talk. Unfortunately, it was not accepted. But maybe it's fortunate. I don't know. I'm a coffee lover. And so please give me travel advice if you can, because this is the first time for me to come around here. So I need some advice. In fact, I didn't reserve any hotels yet for other cities. So I needed more information. So important note here, let's talk about meta-programming. What is it? Well, it's programs that write programs. So this is simplest explanation I can ever make. So takeaway number 2, meta-programming is just programming, in fact, and it's readable. Well, it's harder to read than the like normal code, but it's still readable. I'd like to prove it in this talk. And there are many takeaways today. I believe you can learn something. But don't worry, we'll wrap up them all at the last of the talk. Also note that in Ruby, as you might know, everything is object. Well, what is everything? Class, module, and even method is object. And I will use them, or like RSpec uses them to be functional. Let's go. And enter Keynote, go to terminal. Yes. So let's start with this, like this. Okay. So this is simple RSpec file we're used to. So describe here and let it and expect, and the let variable is here, right? Everything is normal. And in this talk, I don't talk about expect because technically it's implemented in separate gem. So moving back and forth to different gem, different directly is hard, right? So I will talk about describe, let, and it. So what does RSpec.describe do? This is our first question. What is it? What does it do? So imagine, like, what do you do? What would you do if you want to know what's going on inside a method? Take a few minutes, take a few seconds. Well, there are a few options, but my favorite is to ask Ruby. Ruby knows everything. Not everything. Put RSpec, no, my copilot works. RSpec.method, and the argument is described, and the source location, well, copilot is smart enough. We can do that. RSpec method describe dot source location, and then puts it. Let's do that. Yes. So, so this is a result of the source location. And this 42 is a line number. So this is also a takeaway that you can use method and then call source location on it to know where it is defined, including file and line number. So let's see. So here it is. Here it is, but like, what is this? We don't usually write this kind of code. It's too difficult. But it's not that difficult as it looks like. So this class shovel RSpec self end is weird. Looks weird, but it's basically it gets a class of RSpec. So RSpec is a class, but every class has its own class, and it's called a singleton class. And it calls define method on it. So basically what it does is defining a class method. It's simple. And inside that, it calls example group dot send and name. So name is this argument. So, by the way, this method is expose example group alias method, which is a weird name. And it sends this method. Cool. So what's going on here? Example group.send. So for example, what we are talking about is describe. So this name should be describe, string or symbol, whatever. So example group should respond to describe method. So let's go to this example group class here, and no, sorry, I was wrong. Let's grab this. So this method, expose example group alias method, should be called somewhere. So let's grab it. We get 5 results, but 4 of them are like in the same file, dsl.rb, right? So the correct answer would be this one, this line, 277. But we need to find method. What's inside here? Define example group method to method. As the name shows, this method is for defining methods. So in Ruby, this is possible. You might be doing this in the future to define methods, or to define equivalent methods at the same time. You can define methods it's difficult English. Define a method to define multiple methods. Okay. So in Japanese we don't have any distinction between singular and plural. Well, let's grab it. Here. Oh, we find this. Yes, define example group method describe. So it defines a method named describe, and at the very bottom, it also exposes alias for RSpec class. This is where RSpec.describe comes from. Cool. By the way, this method is used multiple times. So you can see context and describe are the same, right? Because it's defined like this. And we see x describe, x context, f describe, f context with option. So they're similar but slightly different, so it's useful for those kind of ways to define methods. Okay, so what's inside? Inside, there are many lines, and it's so difficult to read at first. So then, let's go back. This sample RSpec. So, what if we look for self? So self is familiar to you, right? Self, like this. And we can do the same before and after describe. What's going on? Like this. The outside is main. So main is a default self object in Ruby. It's nothing special. However, the second one is RSpec example groups EuRuKo. This is not the class we defined. So somehow RSpec defined this. And notice this EuRuKo is something we passed to the RSpec describe. So for example, when we make this kaigi on Rails, then it changes. The class name changes from EuRuKo to kaigi on Rails. So this is generated dynamically with the argument, with the description part of describe. Let's go back. So we now know that it generates class. So go back to example group, and we see this line, subclass method. Okay, it's not a method from Ruby. It's defined right here. So look at this line. It generates class.new parent. So this is also a takeaway for you. In Ruby, as I mentioned before, class is an object. It means it responds to new. It means you can generate class dynamically like this. And you can even set a parent class that a child class inherits from. And this parent, what is this? What's this parent? Well, subclass, this self is passed to our parent parameter. So in Ruby, self is difficult. Self is difficult. In this method, self is a class. So it's a class method, right? So self is a class of our example group class. So this means this subclass inherits from example group class. So this is a complex workflow. And second lines later, it calls module exec. Have you ever used module exec in production? Raise your hand. Have you ever used module exec? Oh, a few people. Yes, don't do that. well, it's so hard to debug. But so technically, this block is passed to this module exec and executed under this subclass. So it's complex, but we learned how it works, like describe. So the describe part is almost over. Yeah, so that's what I mentioned before. So module exec method is used to change self, change context. In Ruby, it's important to know what context it is, especially when you read meta-programmed source program. There was a lot to do, lot to learn, but we're still only one line to cover. We have some other lines to know, let and it. So have you ever wondered why this object is possible? What does let do? Is it a variable? Is it method? Well, in fact, in Ruby, everything is method almost. To know that, yes, method here. Yep, like this. So we need to find let method definition first. Let's see. Yup, memoized helpers. Mouse is where I at. Yeah, memoized helpers .rb. So the name suggests that it's memoized, and it's actually also lazy. So no, like this. Memoized helpers 306. Here, so let method. Now we're lucky it's a method, not dynamically generated method. It's just def. Oh, we're lucky. And inside that, well, there are many lines. I will look at it later, but eventually it's just define method which dynamically generates method. So let is a method to define method, as I said before. So in fact, this let is replaceable to def. Let's see. Wow. Def obj and object new and end. Yeah. I believe you haven't written this kinds of code before, like def inside the describe, but it works. It works. So let is basically just a defining method, but with superpower. What is superpower? Well, this one, memoize.fetch or store. So it's kind of similar to Rails cache. First, it evaluates, and then it stores the result to somewhere. Second time and third time later, it just gets the result from the container. And this one is weird one. And, please do not do this. The inside define method calling super, it's so confusing. So calling super like this, should it call let or should it call object? So we're defining method in the method. So we have two conceptual super, right? Let and object. But in this case, it's object. But we didn't define it. We didn't define it. Where is it defined? Well, here. It returns some module, and on this module, it defines method, and this module is included somewhere. Let's see. This method. And this is the most difficult to understand code I've ever seen. Look, seriously, I mean, so this get constant or yield method is literally it get constant or yield. The constant name is let definitions. Okay, inside that, we create module dynamically like class new we saw before. Inside that, it instantly include another module. And inside that, it's set constant dynamically. And it also sets constant dynamically again, and it returns module. So I don't know what's going on. Seriously. However, this is also an important takeaway, especially when you read RSpec code. Read comment. right here, gets the let definitions module. The module is mixed into the example group and is used to hold all let definitions. So this is a module to contain all let definitions. But that's okay. Like we don't have to understand it all, right? I mean, we can read comment and we understand. That's it. So read comment. It's important. And by the way, this module is used like this. So it's also dynamically included on the example group class. So that's why we can use let methods. And back to let. So this is define method, but this let method is inside a class method module, which is typical Ruby pattern to define class methods. So let is class methods. So define method defines instance method on the class. It's important later. Okay. So finally, we're coming to it part. So we do the same and execute RSpec. It returns example group again, but this time it's 146 line. And we looked the same before, not the same. So this method is define example method. So that the last one was define example group method. So it's confusing, but don't be confused. It's much simpler than that one. It just creates example instance with this example group instance. Class object. Class object, not an instance right now. What is example? So in the example, we grab initialize, def initialize. And we have 3 results, but this one looks the correct one. So it registers group class and block. So this block is this block, right? This block. And this example group class is what I mentioned before, dynamically generated class. Soon after, it registers the example group dot examples. It registers self to it. We didn't see this before, so let's go back to example group class and what's going on. So we need to grab def.examples, but no result. Then let's try self.examples. And now we see, oh, 1 line. Cool. Examples is empty array. So it's container, empty array to contain all the example class object. So every describe block, every context block contains its own it blocks conceptually. So this is also takeaway. Gripping is your friend. So master your skill to grep. So like in Vim, basically with like / command searches in the file, but I installed a plugin to search from all the project. So it's really important to be familiar with grep and search. So now we understood what's going on. And final question is RSpec command. What does it do? It's so obvious that we haven't thought about it. But Scott talk, like why? Why? Questioning why? So what's going on? RSpec command. And this is also takeaway. So many takeaways. This is also takeaway that exit directly contains executables in Ruby typically. And it's also typical that inside of this exit file, we have only 1 line of code. In this case, runner.invoke method is that example, that case. So no, runner. Let's see runner. And def self.invoke brings us here. So this is what happens when we call RSpec command. But there are many trivial things, but the core thing is a run method. And inside a run method is right here. And inside the run method, it instances self like this. So it's also a usual usual pattern for this kind of situation. And it calls run instance method again. And this one is a run instance method. And inside this one, run specs world.ordered example group code. So yes, new one, word. We've seen it. We haven't seen it before. What's word? Well, yeah, let's read comment. So word is an internal container for global non-configuration data. So it's a basically it's a global variable. That's okay, global thing. Okay, and inside this one, ordered example group method is defined right here. And basically, it just reorder example group instance variables. So this container variable should contain something. But where did we do? So let's go back to the example group class, and subclass method is here, and sorry, set it up. Well, set it up is interesting name. Yeah, there are many interesting name and method. So set it up, we skipped it, but now it's time to look at it. Well, inside that, it calls registration collection shovel self. This means it registers itself, the class object, into the registration collection container. Where does it come from? Well, grab it and result. So we are going up. So this one, it's set it up method, set it up method's parameter, and this one, it's also parameter. This one is a parameter of subclass method. And let's go back, and now we'll finally find it here. It's a local variable, and it assigns RSpec.world.example groups array, and we assign it to registration collection. So basically this line, what it does is to register this class to RSpec world example groups. That's why we could fetch some example groups from this part. So let's run specs. Run specs does here. Example groups.map do g.run. And this, be careful. So reading source code, be careful. This g is an example groups class object, not instance. Well, we will see it how it is initialized instances later. But for now, this is class method of run. So we're going back to example group, and let's grab def self.run. We have some results, but the right one is right here. It's long. You don't have to read it all. Basically, what it does is run examples. It looks like the correct one. And run example is here. And so what it does is first order examples again, and it maps. And so this example is each example. So this is not example group, it's example. So like it, conceptually it's it block. And this one, new. So in this line, it instantizes itself. And then example.run with that instance. So now we're close to the finale. This is example object we saw before, this one, and def run, this one. So this is, yeah, look at it, example group instance. So finally, we get instance of example group class. and no, no. Yeah, this one. Example group instance dot instance exec self to actually execute a block given to it. That's why right here, this object could be callable, could be called, because this is basically def, and this is basically class definition. So, and this is basically an inside instance method. So, conceptually, we're doing something like this. Conceptually, so it looks totally different from RSpec, but so that's why RSpec is so awesome, because technically what it does is something like this. So it defines class, it defines instance method, and it block is a test method, and within that we can use instance method defined elsewhere, like usual Ruby code. So that's how it works. So now we know how our specs describe it and that works. And let's go back to wrap up. There are so many takeaways, like 9 or something. So let's rush. So reading code is fun. So reading code takes a lot of energy, but it's fun. So it's like kind of marathon, running marathon. So I do it like for 2 hours, and it's so tiring, but it's also fun. Metaprogramming is just programming. So when we read it carefully, it's fine. When we read it rapidly, it's a problem. Method, and source location are really useful. Just master it and use it. If we want to define multiple methods that are almost equivalent, then use method to define methods. And define method is always used. And when self is changed, so when you observe self and something like so self is changed, then there should be a usage of eval method, eval-like method. And class can be generated dynamically. Class.new parent is useful. Read comment carefully, especially RSpec is, yes, I don't think it's the most well-documented libraries in the world, but yeah, still we can find documentation. grep is your friend. Grep it. Learn how to grep. And exec directly contains executables, so look for it if you want to find executable files. That's it. Thank you.